Hey, what's going on, guys? Battle Nation Zimper here, back today with another video. And today, guys, we're recapping the Civil Wars, the Civil War faction, their entire story, their ordeal, and basically everything they're about. So today we're going to be mainly focusing on their characters, because out of all the factions, they probably have some of the most in-depth and well-written characters. Well, of course, the Raiders got the Warlords, the Infected have some of their core units, and the Rebels have Ash. I don't think any other factions has as many, I'll say, characters to them, because each one of these, as we'll get into, really try to define their own story and really do try to stick out. So, got to give them props to making the characters work here. The units, they're all over the place, but first things first, let's just get a handle on what this faction is. So, what is a Silver Wolf? Well, reading right from the wiki, we can read it over. Going ahead, it says, the Silver Wolves are a group of renegade Imperials, according to the developers, a new type of bandit. On the official Battle Nation's Twitter, Z2 replied to a question as to what the rebels are, quote, so angry about, explaining that the Civil Wars work closely with the rebel army in order to profit greatly from the demise of the Empire. This explains why they are so often dressed as thugs with makeshift weaponry, whereas the rebels appear to be renegades of the Imperial army that wish to rebel. The Civil Wars are essentially gangsters. Without the Empire, they can engage in their own black market practices. That's pretty much exactly correct. Basically, you can think of these guys as the Mafia, whereas the Rebels are literally just us, just a civil war within our own faction. The Civil Wars are basically just criminals. They're basically just organized crime, and they hate us less to a factor if they pose us ideologically, more just the factor if we didn't exist, they could get away with crime more easily. So, fair enough, Of course, the Raiders are just nomadic people. They just hate us because they think, we're an invasive government, overreach. Cool. These guys, though, are actually criminals. They just want to rob, steal, thug, kidnap, drug trafficking, all the good stuff. So, that's their whole ordeal. So let's get into some of the characters of these guys, because the characters like the bread and butter of the Civil Wars. Starting off with, of course, Mr. Doug. So this is Doug. Of course, he was the head honcho right there in the center, and that's very rightfully so, because he is the leader of the Civil Wars, or one of their leaders, I should say. There's no definitive leader in this organization, it seems, or at least that we know of. So Doug is a very powerful guy. He has multiple different attacks. It reads right here in his biography. Doug first makes an appearance during the assault on Tribux after Behemer's fall. After appearing in the third and final wave of the Civil Wars leader mission encounter, after the battle, he introduces himself in a way to the player and retreats with his mercenaries, leaving the player with a cliffhanger at the end of 2.0 patch. So this, of course, goes into a bit of the deeper story between the Civil Wars and the player, which unfortunately a good bit of it seems to be lost. I don't think we have the animatics that explain a lot of it, along with most of the missions, but we probably will get them back in the full release of Battle Nations, assuming Madrona Games has access to that, which would be fantastic, because a lot of it is kind of if, ands, or buts about it, but we do know what ends up happening to him. That's the most important thing. It reads right after that. It says, after laying siege against the Civil Wolves base of New Haven, the player will start attacking his personal compound. After destroying the outer defenses, Doug asks if Lieutenant Morgan would fight him personally, man to man. Something Lieutenant Morgan refuses. They battle it out, with Doug being shot 9 times, yet still living. He is captured, but mocks the Imperials for not being able to find Bryson or Mr. Stevenson. So he is in Imperial custody after somehow surviving 9 bullet shots. It states his current status is unknown according to the wiki after being captured by the Imperials, but it can be pretty much assumed he's pretty much still under Imperial custody. I know it could be called into question after, of course, spoiler alert, but, the death of, the Emperor and, the end of the campaign. Maybe he got out in the chaos, but I don't think so. I think he's still under the imprisonment of some faction of the Empire. So that's where I guess he would be, even though it says status unknown. But going into those two people, Bryson and Mr. Stevenson, Let's first start with Bryson. So this is Bryson, and by the way, if you think this looks bad, it could be so much worse. So this is his, design in game. This was his initial design. My goodness. I don't have words for this. Thank goodness they didn't go with this design. They instead went with this one. Okay, so we're going to be using this one, the actual one, for here on out because the other one is ghouly. So this is Bryson. He is defined as the second leader of the Silver Wolves and Mr. Stevenson's right-hand man. Carries a triple-barreled shotgun capable of dishing out high damage even to heavily armored units such as vehicles, as it is heavily explosive. 2 shots will miss on average, even on a super tank. Looks like and feels like a tank killer's barrage attack. Surprisingly, Bryson has 100 armor, even though his clothes do not show any sign of protection. However, it can indicate he may have a bullet-resistant vest underneath the suit, or the suit itself is rendered bullet-resistant. Okay, I'm going to say it's probably a vest. I don't think that suit of any suit would be bulletproof. Who knows? But I love how it said the suit itself might be rendered bullet resistant. I didn't know suits could be rendered that. But nevertheless, he is a kind of henchman to Mr. Stevenson, and he has a personal vendetta against Lieutenant Morgan, as it says right here in his bio. Bryson first appears as Chief Lieutenant to the Silver Wolves. When you first meet him, he pushes that the Silver Wolves must form an alliance with Lieutenant Morgan and his men. But after Lieutenant Morgan refuses, he grows a deep hatred and leads many battles against the player. Later, when the player captures and conquers the Silver Wolf base at New Haven, Bryson and Mr. Stevenson are nowhere to be found. It is later found out that Bryson led an assault upon Installation 17. Another battle occurs with them. The player will defeat him, yet his fate is unknown. Now, it's my personal opinion that he died, simply because I don't think you attack Installation 17 in a mysterious circumstance and then just disappear without being dead. That's my personal take on it. So I believe he's dead. However, I do say it's not set in stone until, of course, we have a corpse. So maybe he makes a comeback. Although I think it's much more likely if anybody's to return here, it would be Mr. Stevenson or Doug. I think he'd be the least likely to return, just because kind of implied to me at least that he's dead. So we've been talking about this man so much. Who is Mr. Stevenson? Well, it would be this gentleman right here. And let's read a little bit about him. Mr. Stevenson is an NPC of the Silver Wolves. He appears to be one of the leaders and the strategic mind behind the Silver Wolves. He is also one of the few NPCs who does not participate in any player battles, so as opposed to Doug, Bryson, pretty much every other character in the Silver Wolf faction, he never battles in game. So Mr. Stevenson is purely just a talking character. Stevenson's current status is unknown. Doug has been captured. Bryson's fate remains unclear. Lieutenant Morgan suggests that Mr. Stevenson might have been approached by the rebel army to request aid for the Silver Wolves, but this theory has not been confirmed. And it's my personal opinion, purely I'm going off speculation here, but it's my personal opinion that Lieutenant Morgan is absolutely correct. I think he approached the rebel army and made some kind of deal with them. What that deal is, who knows? I think we were probably going to see that at some point until, of course, everything fell down at Z2. But I think that was probably for a later on story. And also, it even says in the wiki, and I'll throw it up right here, his status is presumed alive. So he's not even unknown. He is presumed to be alive somewhere. And again, I completely agree with that. I think he probably made some deal with the rebel army. And heck, considering they won his huge quotation marks, at the end of the regular campaign, defeating us, the Empire, there's a good chance Mr. Stevenson might be able to, climb that ladder because, of course, without that unifying enemy, us, the Empire, the rebels won, but at what cost? Now there's big divisions in their orders. Yeah, that kind of adds up. I could see Mr. Stevenson taking a huge lead there. So who knows how that plays out. That would certainly be an interesting way of playing it if they ended up doing that. But that is who Mr. Stevenson is. And now let's quickly review over 2 more characters. Now this is all of the campaign characters. However, the 2 characters on the side right there, you can see on the far left and the far right, those are 2 boss strike characters. So the Silver Wolves ended up getting 6 boss strikes. You heard that right, 6. Nearly a quarter of all boss strikes revolved around the Silver Wolves in some way, shape, or form. And there's only 2 leaders of boss strikes. And you might think, oh, were they split up kind of evenly? Maybe 3-3, maybe, slightly worse than that, maybe, 2-4. No. Despite having 6 boss strikes involving Silver Wolves, 5 of them went to one of them, and only 1 went to the other. Boss strike number 10 had Dr. Volk. It was his one and only boss strike, so we'll cover him first. This is the Doctor himself. He is a mad scientist that has devoted his life to the ancient tech in the world of Battle Nations and the Silver Wolves. He's been with the Silver Wolves forever. So he is this mad scientist. We know very little about him other than the fact that, he's dedicated to the Silver Wolves. He's very deeply interested in ancient technology, and the fact that he is the lead scientist of the Silver Wolves. Don't know too terribly much else. He led Boss Strike 10. Is universally considered one of, if not the best boss strikes of all time. The only really boss strike, in my opinion, that's better is Boss Strike 10, the Infected, the Halloween one, of course. But besides that, nothing really comes close to it. So, by all means, he definitely should have had more boss strikes. At least one more, but no, unfortunately not. He got that one boss strike. Boss Strike 10 gave us the Flying Dexter fragment, that cool thing. It comes from his boss strike. It's tier 10 in his boss strike. And left the world after that. What a legend. Now let's talk about the other boss strike leader of the Silver Wolves, a much, much more popular one. Shro. This is Shro. She is the female leader of the Silver Wolves, one of the only female leaders in the entire game, and only female leader of the Silver Wolves. She's everywhere. She has a lot of fan art on Google and throughout the internet, if you're curious, from back when the game was still popular. The internet loved her, and Z2 loved her even more, because again, 5 boss strikes is insane. By the way, no other character even comes close to that. I think one other person might get 3. And then, there's just her with freaking 5. She is insane. So nobody even comes close to her. Not too terrible. You would think we know a lot about her, considering she's been in 5 boss strikes. Nope. All we know is that she is a high-ranking general in the Silver Wolf Order. Apparently, she has a good division under her. She has a lot of power, and she's led multiple strikes, obviously, against us throughout the years in the form of boss strikes. So, that's pretty much it for those 2. I'm sorry, really, I know there's their aesthetic applies a lot, especially with the Doctor. Dr. Volga has so much story, I feel, that could have been there. We really don't know too terribly much about them besides their boss strikes. Of course, Dr. Volga gave us a Flying Dexter fragment. Shro gave us countless upon countless of Silver Wolf units. We got a bunch of Silver Wolf stuff, everything from Silver Wolf planes to a Silver Wolf tank crusher type of thing. It kind of looked like the Killdozer, but basically just a bunch of cool Silver Wolf units. All, of course, limited edition until the end of the game, when they started giving them out in the later boss strikes. And that's basically about it. Just want to give a quick overview and preview of these thugs and their character designs. Truly some very fun stuff. I can't wait for these guys to come back. I think people like Bryson are just dead. I think once the initial campaign plays out again, I don't think there's anywhere for Bryson to come back. However, people like, Doug, Mr. Stevenson, heck, even Shura and Dr. Volga, if they choose, I think Madrona Games could play them out. I think they could definitely bring them back and implement them however they want. I really hope we get at least one more Shro boss strike just for old times. And I hope we see Mr. Stevenson again. I think his character had a lot of potential, especially with Lieutenant Morgan himself suggesting that, he might have been recruited by the Rebel Army, which he probably was. So would love to see these characters come back, and really glad to just give a quick overview of the Silver Wolves. I feel they're kind of one of the more mysterious factions in Boss Strike, and that's just because there's so much freaking stuff about them. Again, you can summarize all the other factions in 3 sentences, or heck, sometimes even 1. The Raiders are just the nomadic people defending their land. The Rebels are a civil war within the Empire itself. The animals are animals. That's just the wilderness. The ancient tech, of course, kind of ties into everybody to an extent. And then, just the Silver Wolves. organized crime, really. I guess if I had to define them in, one sentence. Organized crime, the mafia, just with a few interesting characters. Just like real-life crime. But I guess that's a story for another day. So yeah, guys, just wanted to make another Civilization cover, or wanted to cover the Civil Wars. I think we did so pretty well here today. If you guys have another faction you would like covered down below, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to get to it. Let me know what you thought of this video, or do you like the Civil Wars? What's your favorite Civil Wars character? Let me know in the comments below. Would love to get your personal opinions about Civil Wars, all that stuff below. And yeah, that will just about do it for us today, guys. If you watched this far, thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate you. Please consider dropping a like down below and subscribing to the channel if you are new. And yeah, that will do it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a great rest of your day.